Hi friends, this is Walter from Zimstones by Walter, and today's video is a really fun holiday crafting project. I love Christmas crafting. I love Christmas, my favorite time of the year. I'm sure many of you will feel the same way. And crafting for Christmas in particular can be a lot of fun. And so this is different from one of my normal videos, which are basically focused on paper. And this is focused on a different medium, which is using either clay or foam clay and molds. And what we're creating is a Christmas book box vignette. I bought these book boxes last year at Joann Fabrics when they were on sale after Christmas. They're really nice. They're made of wood and cardboard. On the front, all is merry and bright with this nice green and red plaid, some trees, the word believe on the spine. And it actually, like, you know, looks like pages there. And when you open it up, there is a magnetic closure. When you open it up, you have the box part, and then you have the, the cover. And so what we are doing is creating two different types of vignettes. One is going to be a Christmas town that is going to have Santa flying overhead. I'm going to have some paper for the background to look like the sky. And we'll carry it over here as well, just so that it looks all blended in. And we're going to use these houses, which are, this particular one is made of clay. You can see that it's an air dry clay that I put into the molds, let it harden, took it out, and I actually colored with alcohol markers. And so we're going to put them into the box, create a nice scene, possibly add a feed for some LED fairy lights to light it up. It's going to look very different than it does now with this particular holly and ivy paper. But it's easy. It's simple. Anyone can honestly do this. These, I think, look really nice, but they're so easy to do. So let's get started by going over the molds and what you need to create the pieces. And I'll show you the other piece that I'm using for a Christmas vignette as well. So I had seen these molds on Instagram, and I knew I had to have them. They're from a European craft company. I believe it's pronounced LeBlanc. It could be LeBlanche, but I'm thinking it's LeBlanc. I'm not quite sure of the proper pronunciation there. But when I Googled, I did find them available on Etsy. And I just think they're gorgeous. And the first idea I had was to create this kind of a Christmas vignette. So I ordered both. One is the Vintage Houses 1. The other one is Vintage Houses 2. And the molds are silicone. As you can see, they're deep, they're well made. I have some remnants there that I haven't cleaned out yet. You get the houses, you get a fence, you get a street lamp. The street lamp is a little shallow, and I had a hard time getting that out, but I will try making it again. But everything else, what's great about these silicone molds is they're so flexible. So once it's dry, you just flex and pick up. And then the second one was, has further homes, from the molds for homes. The other one I picked up that I fell in love with when I saw it on there was this Santa. And it's Santa climbing out of a chimney with some holly and ivy and his bag of toys. And this one is called Nicolaus, very fitting. And again, a very deep mold, and it produced a beautiful, beautiful piece. And so this is not yet colored, but it's all dried. And there's different things, different mediums that you can use in these types of molds. I have seen some people use some wet, believe it or not, toilet paper. And you just wet it down really well. You pack it together and you just press it down, and it does form to the shape of the mold. And with something like that, you definitely want to make sure that you glaze it so that the paper doesn't come undone and it kind of it stays together. There's two other mediums that I have personally been working with, and I like them both, and they each have benefits. So this is DAS, and it's an air drying modeling clay. Got it on Amazon. It's made in Italy. Really easy to work with. I'll show you actually how to get stuff into one of the molds, but you just take some in your hand, you start pressing it down, and you smooth it along. There's a dog hair, sorry. You go ahead and then you let it dry. Typically, I find that the drying time before you can actually take it out is probably around 48 hours. Might be better to let it go a little bit longer. You can try taking it out right away when it's still not hardened, but I do find that sometimes you lose some of the detail from having to twist and turn and press to get it out. So better to wait until it's dry. So that's one. This is just one brand. There are lots out there on Amazon if you go and take a look. And some of these mold manufacturers make some as well. The other medium that I've been working with that I really like is this foam moldable clay. This is by Pixis, P-I-X-I-S-S, also from Amazon. Not that expensive. You get a bucket like this, which makes quite a few pieces, for like, I don't know, like less than $15. I'll show you the difference in how things come out. Let's use a house as a reference. So this is using the air dry clay. It's hard, not too heavy, but it has a little bit of weight to it, but fragile. And so as you take it out of the mold, there's going to be like little pieces over here on the side that are thin that you can just break off, and easy to work with though. I really like it. Now to show you a similar piece using the foam, here's one of the houses. As you can see, it's actually the same one as this set. So here's the one in clay, the air dry clay that I've already colored with alcohol markers. Here it is in the foam. Same size, much lighter in the foam. One of the and when I talked about the pieces that you break off, you get that on the foam as well. This is so much easier because you don't have to worry about ruining the whole piece. You literally just take a pair of detail scissors and snip that right off and clean it up. I have not colored these particular houses with the markers yet, but I have done other pieces colored with alcohol markers on the foam, and it looks just as good. So really, I like both of these. It really depends on, what it is, who it is you're making, what it is you're making, because the weight, if weight is a consideration, then the foam is a lighter way to go. And either way, I'm going to have to use some hot glue and some other types of glue mediums to get that to stick down anyways. But these molds are a lot of fun to work with, and there's so many great ones out there. And as you can see, they turn out quite nice. You can paint them with acrylic paints if you want, but alcohol ink takes really well to these. And it makes it a lot easier, especially for getting into like the little crevices, like these windows in that building way in the back. So much easier with alcohol markers than it would be with a small paintbrush, I think. And you have a much wider array of choices to use for the colors of the buildings. This particular set, I used a darker, like a clay, a sand white in the back, and then a little bit darker than that. Used like really dark wood colors for the door frames and the window frames. on this building that I've already done, which I love the detail on this one, where some of that outer facade, it's been intentionally made to look like it broke away. So I put like a light gray there and then used a greenish gray on the outside, you know, coming down to then a darker gray on the stairs, but the lighter gray on the sides of the door. I mean, and darker on the chimney. You know, but you can color these any color that you'd like. You know, I'm going with more traditional building colors, giving it kind of a European feel, but you could honestly color them pink. You could color them blue. You could color them orange, like whatever colors that you want your little town to look like is how you can color them. So I'm going to move on now and show you how easy it is to get some of the medium into these molds. And then we will start to color and start our design. To show you how truly easy this is, I'm going to do one with the foam clay, which it's in like a Ziploc bag inside of the bucket so that it stays, you know, nice and moist so that it doesn't dry out. And I'll also do one in the air dry clay. Just to show you, but it's so easy. So basically, open up your, I'm going to put that back in the bucket because I like to keep it in there. You open it up, and it looks very plasticky. You just take a good size amount, and I like to, I'm going to move this over so you can see, I like to just break it off, get those little pieces on there. And it has a very, it's almost like a Play-Doh texture, but it's a little different than Play-Doh. And this is used quite a lot in making costumes for the movies. A lot of those masks and body designs and stuff are made with this type of foam clay. So I have my piece, and I might have to add more to it, but this is a good size to start with. And honestly, you just put it down into your mold, just like this. I start on one end, work my way up, making sure that I'm following the sides. I might have too much, we'll see. If that's the case, I can always take some from the top and continue to press it down and form it down. I think I am going to have too much, but that's okay. Little pieces come off as you're doing this, just throw them back in. They're going to adhere down to it anyway, so may as well. So for the first round, I just want to press that down, make sure that I have some in all the areas. And this definitely is too much, so I'm going to start taking some away. Easy to do. I just start in one area and start pulling some up. Just because you don't want to have too, you know, you don't want to waste it. And you don't want it to be too thick on the other side. Maybe you do for your project, and if you do, that's cool. But you can just throw that right back into the, press it down, and it's going to become part of what's there anyways. So may as well not waste it. Now, we'll start pressing down again. Something that I find really helps quite a bit, and especially with this foam, flip it over. And I have my glass craft surface there. And just press. And that's going to help it get right into place, help it start to form all of those nooks and crannies and get all those beautiful details onto it. And it also helps you even out the back of it. And you can press as much as you would like. It doesn't, there. You see how beautiful that is? And what you can do now is you can go around and get rid of the stuff on the sides if you'd like. But that's nicely pressed down now. There's not that much of it around the side, so I'm actually just gonna, I'll cut it away later. And this foam, this hardens, definitely needs at least 24 hours. It may need longer, depending on the humidity where you are and your elevation and everything, but really nice and easy. Now for this particular air dry clay, it comes in a brick. Really easy to work with. You just open it up. When I'm not using it, I do close the packaging up and then put it into a Ziploc bag and make sure I press the air out just to try to keep it as moist as possible. Just to show you, it's a heavier medium than the foam. And this does get your fingers dirty, just warning you. But it washes off so easily. I have not had an issue with that at all. It's much more firm than the foam. Not as I guess I would call, I don't want to say fluid, but not as easy to press down as the foam. But still, you know, not difficult to use. And really, I mean, I have a friend who is a potter, and she just makes the most gorgeous pieces. I have some mugs from her. I have some vases. I have some jars that she's done, and they're absolutely gorgeous. And, you know, she wouldn't be using a mold like this. She actually, you know, uses her wheel and casts it. I'm not a potter. I don't have the skill set that she has for doing that. I've never tried it. Maybe at another time. But, you know, I personally, you know, my first love is paper craft. And so she, though, could probably whip these houses up and they'd be absolutely gorgeous. And they'd, you know, she'd fire them up. And, you know, that is one thing you have to keep in mind. This is air dry clay. It's not the type of clay that you fire in a kiln. So probably, you know, since it's not fired, it's not as strong as that either. So it is a little bit fragile. And that's what I like about the foam, is that it's not fragile, which is really nice. I'm going to do the same thing with this clay that I did with the foam, and that's just press it down, because you want to make sure that that back is, you know, flat if you can get it flat. And I just started working with this over the past couple of months. I've made some really nice shadow boxes for myself, very European themed with some fairy lights inside that look really nice lit up at night. And that's going to be, you know, these are actually going to be gifts for my sisters and my niece. And actually, you know what? Normally this doesn't happen, but that house, I'm glad that this is getting onto camera. This particular house is sticking. I don't know if I'll have to do it again, or if we'll be able to, yeah, no, you know what? We're not going to be able to use that. We're losing detail. It's never stuck on the glass like that before. But that's okay. We're now the foam is sticking to my fingers now because of the clay. Just so you know, that normally doesn't happen, and it didn't pull anything important away, just some of the excess. But I'll dispose of that since it's got the clay mixed onto it now. This has never happened with the clay, so this is interesting. The first time. It is rather humid here, though, today. It's raining, so I'm thinking the humidity may have something to do with it. So I'm just going to go ahead and get it back in there. Press it down. Glad that that happened so that you can see that, you know, the humidity and the temperatures can definitely impact this. And to show you that it happens to everyone. You never know when you're recording. I don't want to edit that out by any means, because I'd like to show you what actual craft, you know, what can actually happen as you're crafting. Because, you know, you could be doing it, following along with me, and you might say, oh, well, you know, this happened. It didn't happen to Walter. And now you see that it can happen. Okay, so I'm afraid it's going to stick to the glass again this time. So I'm just going to use my hand to get it flattened out this time. But I what you want to do is just make sure that it's pressed down there enough, because you want to get all those nice little nooks and crannies and details onto your piece. Okay, so this is going to be good for, I'm going to give it at least probably 48 hours for both pieces before I'll take those out. Okay, so when those are dry, like I said, you just pull them out of the molds. And so what I want to show you now is coloring one in the air dry clay and one in the foam. And I had mentioned earlier, so I've already, for the one with the foam, if you have a Dremel tool, you can use a Dremel tool to go ahead and help get that cleaned up, you know, on a low speed, go along the sides. What I found was very effective was to take, I usually have several craft knives. Some of them I use just for paper, some I use for things like this. And I put a piece of paper on my mat and I just took it and went along and, you know, also kind of trimmed, and those other pieces came right off. So this cleans up really well. And for the foam, you could do the same. You could use a knife, but I find that using my details, a pair of detail scissors is easier. And all you have to do is just trim and you clean it up. It comes right off. It's so, so easy. Sometimes you have longer strips. Sometimes it's just little pieces. And you just go, you know, go around and trim that off. And what's nice about the foam is with the air dry clay, you know, when you're trying to get into small places, sometimes, you know, you might use a little too much pressure and you could break it off. The good news is you can use some glue and glue a piece back on. But with the foam, you have less of a chance of that happening. Sure, you could slip and cut something, but, you know, it's not likely to be as much of a catastrophe as it would be breaking off a piece of the air dry clay. And so you can see this is really quick to get it trimmed up. Really simple, really easy. It's malleable, so you can, you know, move things around and get them, you know, as detailed as you want. So it's just a really easy medium to work with. I guess, like, you know, if there's a downside, I would say that since it does flex and move so easily, perhaps it doesn't maybe capture detail as beautifully, but I don't even know if I'd say that, because, you know, this is the same piece, one in the clay, one in the foam, and you pick up that beautiful brickwork underneath the facade that's cracking. It got it over here too. Honestly, I think it's a really great medium. And it will make your project lighter, which is nice, because, you know, weight, if you're putting something on display, is something that you need to think about and factor in as to, you know, will it stay open if there's a heavy piece on the inside cover. But, you know, that cleaned up really easily, really well. I'm just going to get these little scrap pieces off of my mat, just because I'm somebody that likes to clean as I go. I hate a messy craft area. Okay, so for coloring, as I said, I used alcohol markers. I've used it on both the clay, which you can see here, and on the foam, and it works great in both instances. And so I just like to make sure that I got all those little pieces off before digging in and starting. So really, color scheme is up to you. You can do these, you know, I like to follow a more traditional type of a color scheme. And so sticking with like, you know, the browns, the grays, shades are my preference for doing a building like this, but you can really do it any color you'd like. For the windows, I have done some where the windows have a yellow because it looks like someone's up. I've done other windows that look like, you know, there's no lights on. And something that actually is really fun and a nice little detail to add for these windows. So before we get to coloring, I want to show you this. If you don't have a bottle of Ranger Glossy Accents, you should really pick it up. A bottle like this will last you a long time as long as you keep the cap on and keep it sealed. And what it does is it just adds a nice little sheen to the surface. And I think it's fun to do this inside of the windows. And so all you have to do is just give a little press. Sometimes there could be a little clog there, like with your glues. And so I keep some safety pins over here. And if that's the case, all you have to do is just stick that pin down. And I could see that it did start to pop, like there was an air bubble or maybe something had hardened up a bit that was in there, but that went down. So don't press too hard because you don't want it to come spilling out all over. That was a little hard, but that's okay. But just fill up that window area with the glossy accent. Once you have the, you know, your choice of color behind there, like I said, I like to do a combination of the yellow and the gray. You may choose, you know, whatever color you want. If you want it to look like there's a multicolored Christmas tree in the room, by all means, add some other colors in there. The glossy accents typically dries in really just a couple of hours, depending on how thick it is. This is a little thicker than what you would normally see on like paper. So it might take a little bit longer, but no more than a few hours to really dry and harden up. And that's just it's a nice little detail. Easy enough to do. And, you know, for me, it's when I'm crafting, I always pay attention to the little details because it's those little details like this that whether you're making it for yourself, making it as a gift, or making it to sell, it just shows the person who will ultimately have it that you put that much extra thought into it to create that kind of a look. And like I said, it's just so easy. Just a little bit goes a long way. And then we can just set this off to the side and let it dry. And by the time we're ready to like put everything together, I'm pretty sure that will be dry, and I'll be sure to point out to you how that looks. Now, on to a little bit of coloring. I'm not going to bore you with watching me color everything all at the same time, but I'm going to just show you, like, you know, the basics of it. And so what I just took all of my colors that I want out and went ahead and threw them onto my crafting area. But what I want to start with is I typically start with the windows first, just to make sure that they're filled in so that I don't get any like potential stray colors in there while I am coloring around. So I'm starting with, it's a buttercup yellow. It's a really light yellow. I like to, you know, have just a little bit of you know, again, that detail of just, you know, the lights being on. And you don't have to worry. Another reason to start with the lighter, the yellow in the windows, is you don't have to worry if you get it on the paint, the window pane, because we're going to go over that with a brown anyways. And so that will cover up that yellow. But it's really just as simple as doing that. You don't have to be as careful since this is a light color. But really, I mean, look, It was that simple. And you can see that the medium does take that in. And you can make it as dark as you like. Now to contrast that and show you, you know, you can use any shade. I like to use a darker brown. These are the Ohuhu alcohol art markers. This one is raw umber. I use both the brush and the fine side, depending on what it is I'm doing. So now for going around the outside of the window, instead of using the brush, I'm going to use the fine side, because I don't want the chance of the brush getting down into where the yellow is. And I mean, you can see how quickly this goes. It's easy. Right along the center. Go across. And you can let that dry and come back. The other thing is to think about when you're coloring something like this, which these are supposed to be old homes and old buildings. I think that imperfections in regards to like the structure just add to the realness and to the overall theme. And what I mean by that is this particular piece of the roof had actually broken off when I was cleaning this up. And I thought, ooh, should I just break that off and then cut the other side down? But then I thought, no, this is an old building. Let's make it look like that roof just hasn't been repaired. And when it's colored, it's going to look cool. And I think it just, adds to the authenticity of the age of, these supposed buildings. That's just my preference. You certainly may be like, oh, no, I want to cut those. I want everything to look perfect. And you know what? That's cool. That's your call. I usually go ahead and embrace the imperfections. But that's me. On this particular window, there's like a little ledge in front of it. And so I think that will look cool as cement. And so again, using the flat tip side, just go along that. Add in that little bit of detail. And that window's done. That's how easy this really is. Now I'll start to show you the same over on a clay building. I will go back after and color this in. But as you can see, it's so easy. Not difficult at all. For this one, let's start with the gray windows instead of the yellow. And so this one is, I'm just using the lightest cool gray that I have in my set. And I'm going to go ahead and just, as you can see, even on the clay is more natural and porous and absorbs. So it just, as a natural substance, it just really takes that color. So you don't, that's one difference between these two mediums is the foam being a man-made material absorbs it, but probably not as easily and quickly as the air dry clay. But again, look how quick it is to fill in those individual window panes. And don't worry, again, about the wood in between because you're going to color that anyway. But there we go. Those windows are colored. Can now move on to the pane. You might want to change it up a bit. Go with a bit of a lighter color for your wood. That's clay, not what I'm looking for. I think I'll do this one, Carib Cocoa. Again, going along here, I want to use the finer tip. But look at, that just glides along so easily. Don't worry if it slips. You're going to end up coloring that in anyway. It might be a darker color, it might not. But embrace some of those imperfections. They add, I think, to the overall design. You don't want this to look mass-produced. You want it to look like you actually took the time and made it. And anybody who's crafted knows that sometimes these things, you know, little imperfections happen. But just look at how easy and quick that is. And you can always go back in later and fill in after things dry a bit. Because remember, they won't dry necessarily this very same exact color. Sometimes they dry a little bit lighter or darker than what you have. But since we, you know, I made that, it's so tiny, that little slip there. I'll show you how easy it is to cover that up. I think for this particular building, let's do, I think I'll do this one in the clay. And so I'm going to take my brush end this time. And look at that. You're not even going to know that that was there. Just cover it right up. I also love that sometimes with this natural clay, you get cracks that weren't a part of the molds. And it's just the way that it dried and settled. But color over those and bring them into the design, because these are, you know, in my world, these are old European buildings. And so not everything is supposed to look like, you know, a pristine one shade of paint. There will be cracks. There will be, you know, things that dry, but that's how easy it is to go ahead and color these. So I wanted to give you an example of that. So I'm going to continue on with coloring my pieces, but now you get the basics of that. So you can, you know, color your pieces, paint them if you choose to do painting. That's a fine way to do it. You could watercolor these. You know, the windows will be tough, so I would probably still use alcohol marker on the window panes. But if you have a small enough detail brush, you could get in there. You could watercolor with regular watercolors. You could watercolor with your ink pads. If you have never done that, it's so easy. On a glass surface like this, you can do it with alcohol markers too. Not sure if you've ever tried that. I'll actually show you. Scribble onto your glass, get some of that ink on there. Then you will take a water spritz bottle, spritz that. Then you would simply take your brush, mix that up. And actually, I'll use this as just as an example on the clay. And once you have that, you would just, so it comes out lighter. So you might have to do it a few more times than you normally would, but that's another great way of doing this. Easy. Again, quick, because this is, you know, the watercolor will obviously take more time to dry since it's water and not alcohol ink. But that's kind of a cool look to, you know, you can have a top that's lighter like that. I could go in and fill that in. Another thing you could do with that is add in just some additional details onto where you've already colored with alcohol marker. Nothing wrong with that either. And it will kind of give it that look of being, I think, a little bit more distressed. But that's pretty cool and easy to do. I actually kind of like that contrasting look there. So I'm happy that I hadn't originally planned to show you this, but, you know, crafting on the fly, things change. And I don't like to edit a lot of like things out of videos. That's why when that happened with the clay a little bit earlier, I'm leaving that in because I want you to see that that can happen. Now that I've done this, I want you to see that, you know, you can do it this way and the effect that you get. You know, go up a little bit closer to the windows there. And you can come back and touch up. You can paint one coat with the inks like this, or your watercolors, and come back and touch that up with some alcohol ink afterwards. It's just such a cool effect, and so easy. That's really the thing to stress here, is that I had never, this was my first time working with these molds. Not this particular time, but, you know, a couple of months ago when I first started working with these types of molds and these mediums, but it's easy. And just to show you, this also can be used on the foam clay. Let's show you the watercolor as an example there. Obviously, it's a little bit lighter, but it's a great way to do it. And you know, with the alcohol markers, obviously you don't get as much ink down there. But if you use your ink pads and you smush it on, and you go ahead and mix in the water and then come in and color, you're going to get more, probably a deeper color. But this is just, it's really nice. There are some examples of coloring your pieces. I hope that these different ways have helped you think about how you might do your project.